This is Rob Christ, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about why Jesus didn't say born again and why that matters. Why are the translations of John 3:3 so different? This is where the terminology born again comes from, and it's a term that's become so important in our Christian experience in the last 50 years or so. So it's really important to know where it came from and why. In the ESV, which is the English Standard Version, this is a translation that is favored by many evangelicals. It says, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Now, in the NRSV, which is the New Revised Standard Version, it says, no one can see the kingdom of God without being born from above. So you can see the difference, born again versus born from above. It is really all about the word anothen. And anothen can mean from above or again. And it's actually a pun. So Jesus clearly means from above. Now, Nicodemus, who Jesus is speaking to in this, hears again. Now, we have to remember that Nicodemus is a Pharisee, and he comes from a legalistic sect, a literalist sect. So it's natural that he would take it literally. And we know that Nicodemus thinks this way because he asks how someone can re-enter the womb to be born again. Now, if we're literally again, if that's what Jesus meant, then a much more common Greek word would have been used, and that's the word pollen. Instead, this little bit more obscure word, anothen, is used, and actually ano and anothen kind of means above, from above. But that's clearly not what, so it's clearly not, again, what Jesus meant in this. So why do some translations insist on translating anothen as again? Now, partly they do this for clarity. You wouldn't know why Nicodemus asks about going back into the womb unless you saw the again there. And the pun is not so obvious. But there's also a theology and an interpretation behind this. And all translations have theology in them, but it's particularly apparent in this case. Translations that evangelicals use tend to say, or always say, again. But other translations, particularly ones that are more direct translations or scholarly translations, all say from above. And it's really about being versus doing. The meaning of the verb genethe, which is where being born comes from, is more about being born instead of is born. So where it says is born again is not exactly what the meaning of that verb is. The root of that verb is to generate. So Jesus' meaning is more like being regenerated from above. And Nicodemus heard is reborn. Jesus is talking about being one with God, and Nicodemus is thinking about doing something to get salvation from God. So you can see that these are very different meanings, and this is why Jesus is wrestling with Nicodemus in this area, because Nicodemus wants to do something to earn salvation. So why do we take Nicodemus' side in this? It's really about personal agency. If your focus is on gaining salvation for yourself, you prefer born again. If your focus is instead on reunion with God, you prefer to be regenerated from above. Evangelicals value personal agency. They want to be able to do something. it's not just evangelicals, all of us want to do something, but in particular, there was a particular value on personal agency. But really, instead, Jesus is saying here to be changed from above. And it's a problematic theology because now I use the Living Bible version here is probably the most problematic of the versions that I saw. Unless you are born again, you can never get into the kingdom of God. And this is really a mirror of Nicodemus's thinking instead of what Jesus actually said. But in this version, they put these words into Jesus' mouth. And it's kind of punitive and narrow, in my opinion. And it's not at all what the Greek says. So instead, if you look at it, it's really Jesus offers us an invitation to open yourself to a gentle God who knocks on the door rather than making a bargain or earning your way to that, earning your way to salvation. So this is what I offer and invite you to think about this passage in a different way.